This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. You should see the screen now.
Yep, all fine.
Perfect. Okay. Yes, so as I said, as I mentioned, this is the last lecture, which is somewhat more substantial and that has a bit more material in it. So the 22nd lecture contains an introduction to Athematic Verbs. And we're going to overview the present and aorist tense of some central verbs of the Athematic kind. The so-called mி-verbs, as well as the kappa aorists and root aorists of these verbs. So what are these Athematic verbs? Well, in classical Greek, there is a group of verbs which do not follow the same thematic inflections as the verbs we have been dealing with thus far. For instance, the verbs we have learned so far all have an O ending in the first person singular present indicative active. And usually, except if the verb is contracted, there is a strong presence of the thematic O or E vowel sound in the rest of the present tense forms as well, while the sigmatic aorists have the characteristic A sound, which we have grown accustomed to. However, exactly these thematic endings are largely lacking in Athematic verbs, and Athematic verbs are generally inflected differently when compared to thematic verbs, especially in the present tense. As you can see here on the screen. Just for instance, the active present indicative in tithemi, I place, has the characteristic me ending in the first person singular, as opposed to the O ending in paideuo. Moreover, the other moods of this verb, as well as the imperfect, are formed differently as well, except for the subjunctive form, as you can see. There's a number of different categories of Athematic verbs, but today we concentrate on the four so-called large mι-verbs, which are tithemi, I place, hiemi, I send, histemi, which also means I place, and didomi, I give. These me-ending verbs were all replaced in later Greek by thematic verb forms. But in the classical age, they were still widely in use. Okay, but let's just begin with paradigms then. And first we have the paradigm for tithemi, the present stem of which is tithe or tithe. And this is how this verb is inflected in the present indicative active. So we have here tithemi in the first person singular, tithes in the second person singular, tithesin in the third person singular, tithemen in the first person plural, tithete in the second person plural, and titheasin in the third person plural. And we will note here the change from a long E sound to a short E sound in the stem when moving from the singular to the plural. Okay. In the next slide, we have the imperfect active forms. And first of all, we may note that the imperfects are all augmented, just like thematic verbs in the imperfect tense. So the pattern here is etithen, etithes, etithei, etithemen, etithethe, and etithesan. Okay. Next off, we have the present optative active forms. And here we should note, first of all, that the optative suffix or infix looks a bit different from what we are used to in the present tense, since the optative infix falling between the stem and the ending is here not oi, but an simple iota or an iota and an eta. So here we have titheien, titheies, titheie, titheimen, titheite, and titheien in the pattern. Okay. Then if you turn to the subjunctive, we may note that here the endings are actually the same as in the thematic verbs, which means that we again encounter the long thematic vowels in the ending all the way through here. So the paradigm here is titho, tithes, tithe, tithomen, tithete, and tithose. Then if we turn to the present active infinitives, imperatives, and participles, we have them here. So here we have first the imperative forms. Second person singular is tithei, third person singular titheto, second person plural tithete, and third person plural tithenton. And then the infinitive is tithenai. Yeah. And then the participles are these three last rows here. So it's tithes, tithes, or tithen, and they are then inflected accordingly. So notable here is that the active present participle endings are here actually the same as in the thematic aorist passive forms. So the thematic present participle forms look different, completely different. Okay. Right. Anyway, you can find all these forms also on page 139 in the Cambridge Grammar of Classical Greek. Okay, but then obviously there are also medial passive forms of tithemi. And this you can all find then on the following page, on page 140 in the grammar. So if you can learn at least the present indicative active and medial passive forms. So the present indicative active and the present indicative medial passive forms of these tithemi verbs, that would be good. For instance, in preparation for the exam, if you have the time. Okay, but then we can turn to the next mi-verb, which is hiemi, I send. And this verb has the rather short present stem hie or hie. And it's inflected in the following way in the present indicative active. Hiemi, hies, hiesin, hiemen, hiete, and hiasin. And then we can look at the imperfect forms directly. And here we may note that there is a lack of the augment. And the reason why this augment is lacking is of course that the verb stem begins with an iota, so with an vowel. And this iota is then simply lengthened in the imperfect forms. The pattern here is hien, hies, hie, hiemen, hiete, and hiesa. Okay. Actually, here the first and second person plural forms are identical with the corresponding present forms that we just saw. So these two are identical with these two. But try to learn this padding for the imperfect as well as the present. And then you can look up the rest of the moods for the active forms of this verb on page 139, the grammar, and on the following page 140, you find the medial passive forms. And it's good if you at least overview these forms as well, at least once or twice. Okay. But this verb that we just looked at, hiemi, by the way, usually occurs as part of compound verbs. That is, they stand together with a prepositional prefix. And this preposition then alters the meaning of the verb as well. So does hiemi, for instance, together with the preposition syn, synhiemi means I understand, while afhiemi bears the meaning of I send away. Okay. Then we move fast forward to the next mi-verb, which is histemi, I place. And here we have the two variant stems, histe and hista. And the present active indicative pairing of this verb is histemi, histes, histesin, histamen, histate, and histasin. Okay, next in turn we have the imperfect. And here we have histen, histes, histe, histamen, histate, and histasan. And here we can also note that the second person singular form, as well as the first and second person plural forms, are identical with the corresponding present indicative active forms. So you can compare there and see that they are identical. So in case you stumble on any of these forms in texts, it's the context that must decide if it should be analyzed as a present or imperfect form. But try to learn the active, present, and imperfect pairings of histemi, and then you can look up the inflection of the other moods in the active voice as well, again on page 139 in the grammar. And the medial passive present indicative forms of this verb are on page 140 again. Okay. Then we can turn to the fourth and final large mi-verb, which is didomi, I give. And here we also have two variant stems, which are dido and dido. And the present indicative active pairing for this verb is as follows: didomi, didos, didosin, didomen, didote, and didoasin. Didoasin. Okay, then we can turn to the imperfects. And here we find again that they are augmented in this case, since the verb stem begins with a consonant. So there's no problems here with distinguishing between present and imperfect forms. Anyway, the pairing here is edidun, edidus, edidu, edidomen, edidote, and edidosan. So again, try to learn the present indicative active and imperfect pairings of didomi as well as you can. And look up the rest of the present active forms on the on this same pages 139, 140 in the grammar. Okay, finally, we are now going to look also at the aorist forms of these athematic mி-verbs. And 3 of these verbs take a so-called kappa aorist in the active aorist indicative, which means that kappa infix falls between the stem and the ending. Thus, the aorist form of tithemi is etheka. The aorist form of hiemi is heka, and didomi becomes edoka. And the full pairing for the active aorist indicative of tithemi is the following: etheka, ethekas, etheken, ethemen, ethete, and ethesan. So what is notable here again is that it's only the aorist indicative forms that have an augment. So the rule here is the same as with thematic verbs. The other moods of tithemi in the aorist tense you can overview on page 163, section 1351 in the Cambridge Grammar. And on the next page, page 164, section 1352, you find the corresponding medial aorist forms. And you may note that the kappa infix, which you have here in the singular forms of this verb in the aorist active, are lacking in all of these medial passive forms then. So they are not kappa aorists. Okay. Then we can move on to the aorist forms of hiemi. And on the screen we see the active aorist indicative of this verb. So this is heka, hekas, heken, heimen, heite, and heisan. So here again, this kappa infix is only in the singular forms. But the rest of the active and medial aorist forms of these verbs you can look up yourself on pages 163 and 164 in the Cambridge Grammar. And here you also find all the aorist active and medial forms of didomi. The aorist indicative active pairing of which you see on the screen now. So here we have edoka, edokas, edoken, edomen, edote, and edosan. Okay. Moving on then to the aorist forms of the fourth and final large μ-verb, namely those of histemi. Unlike the 3 previous verbs we have looked at, the active aorist indicative forms are here not formed as kappa aorists, but as sigmatic aorists in the active voice, and in the middle voice as so-called root aorists, which basically means that is when we have a root aorist, that the aorist is formed by placing the aorist person endings directly after the root of the verb. That is, there are no infixes or thematic vowels falling between the root and the ending of the verbs. Generally speaking, there are not that many verbs which take root aorists. And the ones that do, you can find full pairings of on page 160, section 1339 in the grammar. But here we can overview the medial aorist indicative forms of histemi, which are of this root aorist type. So the root is here, this ste part here, and then the person endings are directly placed after this root. So, and then we have the augment here, of course. So this final consonant here is basically the root, the person ending, and here the person ending has completely been absorbed by the root actually. And yeah, stay here, and men is the person ending, the person ending, and here son. So the pairing here is esten, estes, este, estemen, estete, and este son. Okay, then you can look up the rest of the moods of this verb in the aorist on page 160 in the grammar. And on the same page 160, you also find the full pairing for the root aorist of gignosko, I know, or I come to know. The aorist indicative, of which you see here on the screen. So this is another aorist of this root aorist type. So the root here is gno, aorist root is gno, and then we have again the same thing here. The person endings follow directly on this root, and that's how we recognize an aorist of the root aorist type. So the pairing here is egnon, egnos, egno, egnomen, egnote, and egnosa. Okay. So that was basically it for today. So there is not that much more content on this course actually grammar-wise, but a few more athematic verbs in the last two lectures we will have time to look at. Okay. Or occasion actually. Of course, you could include as much content as you can think of in a course like this, but you have to draw the line somewhere. Any questions, or should we move on to the chapter? Did you hear anything?
Yeah, no questions.
Cool. A lot of content, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that important to learn everything. I mean, these thematic verbs are like, of course, it helps the more pairings you learn, but it's not as important as knowing the pairings for the thematic verbs, I would say, for to have the comprehension, because you can figure them out somehow anyway, also without learning the pairings that rigorously.
And the exam, the next exam, is it the same sort of format as the last one?
Yeah, exactly. So the same idea. I will again ask you to register for it by sending me an email and just.
But sort of a no major length of time constraint to go through it, or?
What do you mean now?
Well, I mean, how long have we got after we get the exam to finish it?
Oh, as long as you like. So.
Okay, yeah.
No pressure. But I'm sure you will finish it quickly, within 24 hours.
Yeah.
That was the time limit that we had in Gothenburg University. So we sent them the exam, and then they had to return it within 24 hours. And yeah, it was quite tough actually. The second one is a bit more difficult, but it's not really that difficult. I mean, you will manage it, I'm sure. And not only you, anyone who wants to do it will for sure be able to, as long as they dedicate some time and effort to it, of course. Yeah, but let's move on to the. It's a great test of what you have learned. So that's how you have to see it. You know,
Yeah.
like just testing your knowledge for your own sake and for your own satisfaction, so to speak.
Yeah.
Maybe we can try to look through these 5 first, or how far have you reached?
I've got down to the end of Cyrus's grave inscription, and I've started working on the decree from Delos.
Okay, well, we can see how far we reach if we start now. So
Okay.
yeah.
So, the first one I had as the king has been revered by all.
Yeah, exactly. So how would you analyze this? That you name by?
Third person perfect passive.
Yeah, exactly. And indicative as well, right?
Oh yeah, passive indicative. Yes.
Yeah.
Then the next one is the horse had been injured by the journeys, or by the.
Had been injured by the journeys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the single, of course, but.
But journey, yeah. Test.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. So. What tense do we have here?
Pluperfect.
Pluperfect, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Indicative. Third person passive.
Yeah, exactly. So just for the sake of rehearsal, it's you can recognize the pluperfect by the fact that it has this reduplicated perfect stem first of all, but then it has also an augment in front of that reduplicated perfect stem. Yeah. Okay. Then the third.
The general said a certain one of the soldiers had been killed.
The general said.
Strategos. Wait, hang on.
Almost. I mean, you're almost there, but it's some. I have a slightly different interpretation. Because it's like the general is the subject here. That's true, but
it is said.
Yeah.
That the general was killed by one of the soldiers.
Yeah, exactly. So some soldier.
Yeah, that's right.
So the hypo and genitive. So this stratiotu tinos. Tinos is the agent here, marked by this hypo preposition. And then the actual subject here, strategos, is the one which becomes the object of the action rather than the performer, because since we have here an verb in the passive voice.
I had that as a perfect infinitive, is that correct?
This one, yes, exactly, perfect infinitive. And what voice?
Passive.
Passive, exactly. So
which is why the general.
Passive perfect infinitive.
Yeah.
Very good. And this is like an impersonal, like you translated, an impersonal
it is
verb
said.
form. It is said, exactly. Okay. And the fourth sentence then.
So Leonidas and the Spartans, and then there's a participle which I translated as after being formed, or after being formed in a circle, began the battle, or having.
This one.
Yeah.
So what's the? Did you get the? Were you able to deduce the basic form of this verb here? This the phenomena of this participle.
Well, I said it was a perfect plural male participle, neuter, male participle.
Yeah, masculine.
Masculine, yeah.
Participle.
Sorry, male, yeah.
Male, you can say. A
So,
male participle. That's actually quite good.
so I thought that linked up with hois spartiatai.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a participium conjunctum, definitely.
Yeah.
Which links to this subject, hois partiatai.
Yeah.
Stephanomenoi. But Stephanomenoi, how did you translate this?
Well, I had it as formed into a circle or into a
yeah.
I couldn't work out.
Let's see what you had here in the vocabulary.
Yeah.
For it, I had some.
Well, you had crowned. Ah, there we go. Being crowned.
Yeah.
Having been crowned or wreathed.
Yeah. But still,
okay.
Well, yeah, it doesn't make that much sense actually, but I guess that's what they did before going into battle, maybe sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, they crowned themselves, or they were crowned. Leonidas and the Spartans, having been crowned, began the battle, or something like this.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
So the next one is Athens had been decorated with many temples.
Yeah, exactly. And how would you analyze this verb form?
So it's pluperfect, passive, indicative, third person singular.
Yeah. Exactly. Good. And hi Athena, Athens again in the
plural.
In the plural as usual, as always. Okay.
So
the second one then.
Second one is many things have been done well by you.
Yeah, exactly. So again, we have here many things or even everything.
Everything, yeah.
Again, we have here a subject in the plural, a neutral plural, and then we have a verb form in the neutral singular.
Singular, yeah.
Which is the general rule of thumb for when the subject is in the neutral plural. The predicate is then in the singular. Yeah, very good. The next one then.
A trench had been dug around the city, or a ditch.
Almost, I would say. We have here. This is not city. This is genitive plural form of polites. The citizens.
Citizens. Okay.
Yeah.
So
they are the ones who are the agents here. Hypoton, polite.
By the had been dug by the citizens.
Yeah. So the trench had been dug by the citizens. Exactly. Okay. Next one then. Sorry.
The enemy had been drawn up in battle order around the mountain.
Yeah, around or on or.
Yeah.
Epi and the genitive
is on.
Oh, it's usually on. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. And then that verb is
this one.
Yeah, paratagmanoi is asin is a perfect.
Oh, this one, yeah.
Yeah, perfect passive.
Yeah. The voice is passive.
Yeah. And
or media passive, actually, formally.
Yeah.
But passive as decided by the context.
Yeah.
So, but what kind of verb form is it?
Well, it's a participle
A
plus.
participle, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the case?
It's masculine.
Masculine is the gender, but
Gender case is
accusative or
it's
nominative.
nominative.
Nominative, exactly. So again, of the participial conjunctive type connects to this hoi polemioi, which is the subject here. Okay, then what do you have then?
Now this one I got a bit tied up in, but so erota I had as an imperative.
Exactly, yes.
So ask them.
Ask them, yes.
Yeah. Whether they have been arranged in battle order and they wish to be our enemy. Yeah. I couldn't.
T. I would read as why here.
Why? Oh, why? Okay. So okay.
Ask them why.
Why?
Why they have been ordered.
Okay. Yeah.
And Krezzo is here. Yeah. Like want to or.
Yeah.
Or did I have it here on the list?
You had
desire or
want.
Yeah. Want could be a possible, and want to be, right?
Yeah.
And want to be our enemies. Yeah. So why they have been ordered in battle and want to be our enemy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next one, I think that everything has been done well.
Yeah, that's it. Number 3 then.
Is you have been hurt.
Yeah.
By yeah, so you have been hurt by your enemies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I couldn't work out why there were two tone. Why there was tone.
That's just
Phrase.
how it is usually. Ton, ektron, ton. Hypoton, ektron, hymeter. This one is could in principle also be erased, and the meaning would be the same. Or alternatively, this one could be erased. Beblafte hypo ektron, ton, hymeteron. But it's often like this, that there is the article is repeated like that.
Then the next one I've got as the dead have been buried.
Yes, exactly. So here we have done perfect participle again.
Yeah, with
passive.
To be.
Yeah. So the basic form of this verb is tough, right? Top. Oh wait.
Yeah, I don't.
Tough type. How was it again? I hope I have it here. Top.
I think we've had it previously.
Yeah, we should have it.
Yeah.
I've had it. Yeah. Top, exactly. Yeah.
And then the next one is I think that the dead, or I believe that the dead have been buried. Nomitsu is I know, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that the dead have been buried, exactly. And this, what kind of verb form is this?
It's a perfect passive infinitive.
Yes, exactly. Perfect passive infinitive of this same verb, tapto. Okay.
Fourth one, many treasures have been stolen.
Yeah. Or it could also be much money has been stolen or something.
Much money, yeah.
Could be, but many treasures have been stolen. Yeah.
Much money, yeah.
And the next one.
The city had been fortified with walls.
Yes.
Because that's a.
So the tense here is what's the tense here?
Pluperfect.
Pluperfect again. So yes, read the declared perfect stem and then an augment in front of it.
Yeah.
That's how we recognize it. Good.
And then the next one is I think that a great army has been well, I put mustered.
Yeah, mustered.
Yeah.
Could be a good translation, right? Mustered or gathered or something like this.
And then, so number 5, I've got, I had it as fratse as the second singular imperative of show.
Come again, the second.
Fratso, so fratse as a second, so an imperative.
Second person singular,
second person singular, but it could be an imperative as well, couldn't it?
It's an imperative, I would say.
Yeah, you show.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then I couldn't really. So I put show and it will have been done. I couldn't, because that's a future perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So that's an futurum exactum form. And it will have been done.
Yeah.
So tell it or
show and it will have been done. Yeah.
Or something fratsa we haven't had before, I don't think, but it's missing from the list. I have to add it. But yeah, say it or show it or something like this, and it will have been done. But it doesn't make much sense. But
no. Yeah. Okay. Because yeah, I was a bit confused. Well, not confused, but sometimes I can't get the context. You know.
No, but there's no context here. That's the problem, right?
True.
Is it just loose sentences?
Just practicing.
Yeah.
So then this last sentence with Cyrus I found quite difficult. Cyrus says this.
Yeah.
Okay, but then I couldn't really work out the whole structure of this. And so 18, if any, because I've got with one another, allelois.
Yeah, with one another.
And then sunaf thete I had as a future perfect infinitive. I couldn't work it out.
This one or this one?
The suna, that one, yeah.
Yeah, this is just a future form of synapto.
So it's just a simple future. So
a simple future, yes.
Okay.
Active future indicative.
Active future, third person. No.
Second person.
Second
plural.
person plural. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe something like if you engage in battle with each other or something like this could be this first one. Or in some battle, if you literally, if you engage in some battle
with others,
with each other, allelois, then what?
and I could.
So this is an imperative form, I would say. Nomitsete, think,
Think,
or consider.
Consider in interde tehemera.
In this very day, or on this very day.
On this very day.
On this same day.
Yeah.
On this very day.
And then I had katakekexai as a future perfect infinitive.
Yeah.
Passive.
Yes. Katakekopsestai. Katakekopsestai.
Yeah. Oh, say that after a few drinks. But I couldn't work out what the word katakopto.
Yeah, it's from katakopto, which could mean die or kill. Did I have it here? I must have had it here. Kata. Why don't I have it?
I didn't see it. No.
Or work here. But it's like die or kill, or heal maybe in this sense, in this context.
So on this very day, so basically,
I will die, something like this. On this very day, I will die, and then what? Kai hymas.
And you, humas.
You, exactly. You in the plural.
Not long after me.
Exactly. Exactly. So something like this, the full meaning, or full sentence. Cyrus says this, if you engage in some battle with each other, consider that on this very day, I will die, and you not long after me.
Long after, okay.
So, yeah. This is actually from the Anabasis, I think, something like very, very similar.
Oh, okay.
It's said in the Anabasis, so it's. But of course, this future exactum, future perfect infinitive form makes it a bit difficult to comprehend. But the katakopta can mean kill in the active, and in the passive, I think it's to be killed, or
Okay.
Slaughtered. Yeah. Okay,
so
the last here then.
The final one of those is, and again, I found the structure a bit difficult here, but so philos is a friend. Hemen is a plural dative, so a friend to us. And then a future. It's from lepo.
Yeah, yes,
lepo, to leave. So I thought that was a future passive infinitive.
Yeah, it's not infinitive, but
oh, okay.
It's future passive third person singular, but it's it's
a friend to us.
Future passive perfect future third person singular.
Okay, so
philos oudes, no friend
to us will ever have left.
Yeah, or no friend of ours will ever be left.
ever be left. Ah, okay, that makes sense.
I will understand it as. So be
Yeah.
left behind or something like this.
Yeah,
In a
Yeah,
battle
right.
or something like this.
That's right,
Or an
yeah.
expedition. But that one was a tricky one. Yeah, this last fifth one was a bit difficult.
but
Number 5 here.
the grave. Yeah, the fifth one was quite difficult, I found.
Yeah.
But again, if it's coming from Xenophon,
Yeah.
it can be a bit tortuous occasionally.
Yeah. Do you think we could leave this last bit? If is it okay for you if I translate it and send it to you and you can compare with your own
Sure, no problem.
translation? So I'll do that, and then if you have any questions, of course, just write to me anytime. Because I have a problem with an angry child here. So
I hear that, yes.
maybe you can hear.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Thanks for today.
Thank you. Cheers then.
Bye-bye.